Hey, Anita, we've been talking lately about dark psychology and online marketing tactics and these alternatives that people could use instead. And one of the questions that came up that I've heard is, when is the time to make the switch, right? Because we're all using the online marketing tactics, the scarcity and urgency and reciprocity and all the things the gurus tell us to use. And we are preaching some alternatives to that aren't high pressure salesy tactics. So I thought it'd be helpful if you told everyone your own story, like when did you know it was right to make that switch for yourself?
Yeah. Oh, you know what? It's so challenging. When I first came into the digital marketing world, I think like most of us, I had my past experience with marketing face to face. It was very different when I was working at the university. And then coming into the digital marketing world, I had no idea what to do or who to listen to. So I came across a few big names, bought their courses, and just started following exactly what they taught. Do this, do this, do this, do this.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of exciting, and yay, I'm finally building this online business. But there were some things like we talked about, that when it came time to build some of my very first webinar, that's what it was. And I was starting to build it, and then at the end, when it got to the sales portion, I just felt sick. I didn't like what was being taught to me. I wasn't even really aware that I didn't like it. I just knew that I struggled with that portion of the webinar, which was really interesting. And I've come to learn, whenever I'm really struggling with something, it's usually because it's at odds with either a value or belief I hold. So I created these webinars. I did like they told me to do by using some of these tactics. I created these selling stacks, they're called, where you layer on to try to get more sales. And I remember I didn't want to promote it. And I was like, why have I done all this work, and yet I'm really reluctant to go out there and promote this?
But you saw
And
all the gurus using those tips.
well, and that's it, right? Like, I had just bought their programs. I had just gone through the webinars myself and listened to their pitches. And, you only have 15 minutes after this webinar ends to grab this great deal. And if you miss it, you miss it, that kind of stuff. But I wasn't aware of what was going on. I didn't know yet about the psychology behind these tactics. And I believed them. So I jumped in, and at the time, I knew so little that I just needed to get something, right? And so I created this webinar, and then I didn't want to promote it at all. Now, I'm somebody who likes to get stuff done. I make a decision, I act on it. That's how I am. And I was like, just hating it. I was hating what I created. And it took me a while to figure out that what I actually didn't like, I liked all the content I created. It was the ending and the selling that I didn't like. So I've got to just say this quickly. I enjoy selling. I love to sell face-to-face. It's something I really enjoy doing because I find it's mutually beneficial. And again, when I'm selling, I actually know can help people, or that they want it. I'm not just selling to sell to make money. And yet it would come to this part in the webinar, and I'd just be like, I don't want to do this. It doesn't.
You can't break the formula, right? Because some formulas, you have to do this first and show the scarcity,
Yep.
urgency, and your authority. Yep. You have to follow these steps to get to that place.
Yeah, and that's it exactly. I wasn't trusting myself enough, because here are these people I've bought their methods and formulas and processes, and they were all saying the same thing. Excuse me. Do this, then this, then this, then this, and this will be your result. And from everything I'd looked at in the market, these people were at the top of their game, right? They were dominating. So it's like, well, if they can do it, why can't I? And I know, Matt, you've got something to say about that. And I will come back and tell the rest of the story as we go on in this discussion about how I actually moved from following what everyone else had done until I figured out what feels comfortable for me. But I know you've got something to say about this. So why don't you go ahead and add it?
Yeah, I felt the same way about that, because I was learning about the formulas. And it took me a long time. I must be like the slowest learner in the world, but I finally figured out what was going on. I'm a psychologist. I was trained as a psychologist. I taught psychology at the university. All these tactics that the gurus were teaching are psychology, but they're teaching them wrong. They're teaching them incomplete. They're taking a big psychological principle, reducing it to just a tactic, and then applying it. And I didn't see it. I just thought, oh, these online marketing guys must know all the answers. And I set aside everything, including 25 years of knowledge about psychology. I set it aside and said, well, they must have the formula, right? I have to follow the formula. And it took me 3 years of buying all these products and stuff to realize there isn't a formula. There is no formula. A formula is E equals MC squared. You know, that works. If you go E equals MC cubed, it doesn't work. A formula works every time. What they were teaching is more like Granny's recipe, right? You know, Granny made these great cookies, and you're like, Granny, how'd you make those? Oh, I don't know. I put like, you know, a slab of butter and, you know, just a dash of baking soda. And you're like, well, do you have a recipe? Well, no, it's just kind of like a little bit of this and a little bit of that. That's what they're teaching is Granny's recipe. It works about 5% of the time. And there's a reason for that, because that's where their testimonials come from. And I have a big rant. I would talk about how infrequently the formula works. And so you got to know that it's not a formula. It's Granny's recipe. And sometimes it works. Most of the time it doesn't. But I had the same struggle. Why isn't the formula working? If you only follow the formula, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should put the scarcity a little later. Maybe I need to demonstrate my authority sooner. Maybe I need to put my 3 testimonials here. And this is what everyone's doing because they think this is a formula, and it's not. And so they set aside, so that's what I would tell the audience. Don't set aside your own experience and knowledge, business sense, your own gut feeling, how you want to sell. And you were saying the same thing, that you wanted to sell, you like to sell, you have good content, you want to help people, you have a solution that works. And this is what we're all trying to do. And then we smother it with these bad tactics and these formulas that the gurus have come up with that never worked, I think, even from the beginning. But it didn't matter because, as we said, it was the wild, wild west when they started. Anything would work. You could do anything, and people would say, oh, you know, they could sell, what, $120 ebooks, and they talk about, oh, yeah, I would sell $39 PDFs, and they could sell anything to anybody. But from that, they said, oh, well, here's the steps I did. Well, those steps don't work anymore. We're not in the Wild West. That age is long gone. We missed it. You know, sorry, the gold rush is over. And now we actually have to apply real psychology and real care to sell to our people. And you're not going to get that in these formulas. So that's my experience. I'm a slow learner, but I finally discovered, yes, now I see what's going on. As a psychologist, as a researcher, I see it, but also as somebody who wants to help people and realizing that we're all on the wrong track. There are alternatives to this, and that's what we've been talking about in this series.
Yeah. And the gut feeling, Matt, that you talked about, my experience is the same as yours. I come from 14 years working in research at a university. I did the same thing. I discounted all my experience because I didn't see that it applied in the online world. And the biggest thing I discounted were my feelings. It was only when I created that webinar did I go, wow, I don't like this. This is not me. This is not how I want to represent myself. Again, though, the challenge is, then what do I do? If this is what all the big names are doing, and this is everything that's being taught, what was the alternative? And how do I know that I'm ready to take that leap over from where I've been, these formulas, these methods, these processes, all these steps, to something that better aligns with what I want to do? The recipe idea, I think, you know, it's the same thing. We could have called it, instead of formulas or methods or processes, a recipe. Step by step by step by step. This is how you do it. But at some point, you've got to go with what fits with who you are and your beliefs and your values. Using false scarcity, using false urgency, those are things that don't align with me. And I was sitting here having to make this decision. I've just spent, days working on this webinar, and days, probably weeks at that point, putting such a huge effort into it and realizing, now what do I do? A, what do I do to make the sale? And B, now what do I do with all this work that I've, this webinar I've created? Where does it go? And so that was a big challenge for me when I was making this transition over and realizing that I didn't want to use what I had learned, and I wanted to go a different path.
Yeah, it made me think while you're talking about how this industry has justified all these dark psychology tactics. And again, that's one of the things I didn't see until later, because they would say, well, you have to use urgency because people won't buy unless you do this sort of thing. And you have to use reciprocity, and you have to use these tactics because if you don't, people won't do these things. But it's circular reasoning. It's like, they're just saying, well, there is no data justification behind it in the psychological research. They say, oh, well, in my experience, in the twice that I did this, or even in the 10 times, or even in the 50 times, that's nothing compared to the decades and the thousands of studies in psychology that actually describe why these principles work. They're ignoring all that because they don't know about it. They're not going to go to the library and read this stuff. They're just going to keep applying what everybody else does. And the justification is, oh, this is how it works. And when you look at it really deep, it is like paper thin, the rationale why you would use these tactics in the first place. And now that is even falling apart because the gurus' numbers are plummeting. And that's the dirty secret, no longer much of a secret. Used to be only people in the inner circles knew this. Now we're all recognizing the gurus' numbers are plummeting. They're not getting anywhere near the numbers they used to get with their conversion rates and show-up rates and sales. And they are scared because they have nothing else. All they have are these tactics. And that's why we're here, to give some alternatives to these tactics that have now faded away.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure as people are listening to us, I know if I was listening, my first question would be, so what do you do? What is an alternative to using things like urgency and scarcity? And obviously, we can go much more in depth in another one of these chats of ours about this. I know for myself, the first thing I needed to do was make the decision that I didn't want to use those things. That was the first thing. And maybe even before that, and we both touched on this in this discussion so far, Matt, is before that, I had to trust my experience, my gut feelings, my values, that I knew what's best for me and my business. Again, we both had discounted all of our years of experience because we thought, well, these guys are the experts. We'll just follow what they're doing. I think that was the first place for me to start. What would you say that was your experience as well?
Yeah, it's kind of like there's like a little chink in the armor, a little recognition, and that got me, thinking, well, something's wrong here. Like, does this only not work for me? And then I would get into masterminds and hear from other people. I'm using that formula. I took that course. It doesn't work for me either. And as the more people you talk to, the more likely it doesn't. But we hear about the same stories. There are some gurus that we would all know that they've used the same stories for 7 and 8 years, like the same case studies. Hey, it worked for this guy. Well, what happened to be, that was 8 or 9 years ago. We keep bringing up the case study. So we look at the case studies that work and think, well, it must work for us. There are far, far, far more people it doesn't work for. And so I think that's the recognition for some. Some feel like you did. It just feels icky, and it wasn't, it didn't resonate with who you are. It wasn't consistent with who you are. For other people, it will be that their numbers are plummeting. Maybe for those people who are at a higher level, they'll say, well, I must just have to do more of it. And I've talked to a lot of these folks. They are working so hard. Like they've made a lot of sales. They've made a ton of money over the years. They should be enjoying it, but they're not, because they have to work 3 times as hard using the same tactics. So maybe for that group, they'll recognize, there's something about this not working. I'm not getting the same sort of numbers. So I think it's going to touch people. People are going to recognize it in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. I know for myself, I very much go on feeling. That's where a lot of my decisions are made first, and then I rationalize afterward. I just knew it didn't feel good. I just watched myself procrastinate in selling, and then, promoting the webinar. And that to me was so vastly different from how I usually operate. And that was like big red flag, like something's going on here. What is it? So I stopped and I looked, and it was like, I don't like these sales tactics, because that's what they feel like, sales tactics. To me, there was a lack of respect for the individual and where they might be. Maybe the product I'm selling or the service I'm selling isn't ideal for them right now, but maybe in 6 months it will be. Or maybe they just really truly don't have the money right now, but when they do get the money, they will purchase. I didn't like this whole idea, if someone's on the fence, then I use all these different ways to push them in the direction I want them to go, versus respecting where they're at and allowing them to make the choice themselves. And that is the biggest switch of all for me, was bringing in that respect for the individual and their ability to make the decision, and making that the first and foremost over sales.
And that just reminded me of the point, that when I came into this as well, I thought there was something different about online marketing, that we have to do this different. A lot of people you would never, ever, ever use these tactics in real life, right? Like you wouldn't walk into a department store, a Target or a Walmart or whatever, and you find some camping gear and you look at it and then you set it down, and then a salesperson rushes over to you. Hey, do you like that camping gear? There's only 4 left. You got to buy them right now. Right now they're at a discounted price. You could come in tomorrow and buy this, but it's going to be twice as much. You have until we close at 10 o'clock. We close at 10. Buy it now.
Yeah.
You would be like, are you insane?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's exactly what we do online.
We do.
So why would you do that? But the online gurus are like, well, that's how you do it online. And most of us are like, no, that's not how we like to be sold. And their numbers betray them. Their numbers that we've heard as well is, for example, this notion of pushing people, selling them in the last hour. Oh, you have to send them an email. Oh, that sounds kind of pushy. Oh, no. You have to send them within the last hour of your cart close. You got to send that, because that's when you get the most sales. Well, guess what? 75% of those people who bought in the last hour want their money back in 30 days. That is a fact. And that comes right from the guru's own numbers. So hooray for you. You sold somebody in the last hour. 3/4 of them want their money back. How painful is that to do? And the embarrassment of them having to ask for their money back, but again, it's just one of those things that seems to be different in online marketing world. And it's just not true.
Yeah, I so agree with you on that I think it's because it was the Wild West, 10, 12, 15 years ago. Anything went. We had no idea where this whole internet online world was going to take us. Like, just think back, like, okay, I'm going to date myself, but I remember in the early 90s getting email for the first time and being so excited by it. We had no idea how things were going to evolve. And you're right. What you could use back then, you can't use now. And I actually think it's a good thing. I'm actually excited that we are bringing in a different way of doing things, because you're right, face to face, we would never do this kind of stuff. But somehow we've been taught that it's okay to do it in the online world. And I totally disagree. Like, I'm planting my flag and saying, no, we're still humans. We still relate the same way. Just because I may not be able to see you face to face, or there might be distance between us, we still are humans. And for me, the word respect, it is bringing that word in, respect. If I respect you as a potential customer or client, I want you to be ready to make that decision to work with me. I don't want to coerce you into it. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I feel the same way. I've taught at a university for many years, I'm used to this notion of having students. And there were students that I taught at Purdue. There's students that I taught at a university in New York that stuck with me. So, I heard from them years afterwards. Hey, Professor Champagne, I'm changing jobs. Do you have any leads? So you're finding them jobs, you're writing them recommendations. It's like a lifelong thing. And of course, not every student ever, very few, percentage wise, but it's that notion that you're always there for them well beyond that time. And it started because it started right. It didn't start with a high pressure sale, selling them something they didn't want, pushing them into something that I knew wasn't right for them, but just saying, this is what I have to offer. And I think it could help you. Oh, you don't want it? That's fine. Let's just keep talking. Maybe there's something else I can provide for you. Maybe I know somebody else that can help you. I can refer you to, not just dump you into like my JV partner list and have them mass sell you something else, but I happen to know that this person who could help you with this and connect them. So just that notion of having that, thinking long-term, thinking lifetime. And, that's my other podcast, Keep Your Customers Forever. That's the mindset. How do you keep people forever? Well, it's got to start in the right way. And you won't do that with these online marketing tactics.
And the thing is, these online marketing tactics are great for some people. There are people who are not going to want to even look at what we're doing here with this alternative model, if you will, or movement. And that's fine. This is not for everyone, just like those models are not for everybody. I know, certainly not for us. That's perfectly okay. The bigger thing, I think, being a business owner, we have to carve our own paths. And I find I am most fulfilled in my business when I'm most true to what I want and that upholds my values and beliefs versus goes against them. I've done that before. Like I discussed earlier on, created that webinar and I hated it because it wasn't me. It didn't align with who I am. So encouraging everybody to stop and say, does this work for me? Is this what I want to be doing? To own who you are, your beliefs, your values. You might be told and hear from everywhere else that this is the way to do things, but if it doesn't resonate true to you, honor that. If respecting your customers is more important than making a quick sale, honor that. That's what this chat with Anita and Matt is all about. We want to talk about how we can grow our online businesses in a way that really supports and reflects who we are as individuals, as business owners, and what we want to accomplish without always making the sale the primary goal. And I really like that, Matt. Long term. That's what I'm looking for, long-term and deep relationships versus a whole bunch of very shallow ones that might not go beyond that initial sale.
Yeah, that's great advice. I won't even add anything to that. That was perfect. And I will just add something, something different, which I would tell people to challenge everything. Challenge us, challenge, of course, what we're saying, but challenge what the gurus are saying, because the expectations are so low in here. We come from a different backgrounds, and I'm bringing with me, like in my world, when I do a survey, I've done about 7,000 surveys over the last 25 years. In my world, when I do a survey, I get 80 or 85% of people to fill it out. That would be normal. And you tell that to people like, no, that's insane. You must be, I'm like, no, that's the world. that's my expectation. But you come into somebody else's world, they're like, oh no, you only get 5%. If you can get 10% of people to fill out your survey, that's awesome. I'm like, if you do it wrong, like, why would you only get 10? Like, that doesn't make any sense. But it's the same with the online marketing gurus. They're like, oh, well, you'll get 20, a good number is like 20%, maybe 25% is like the most you'll get of people who said they were going to attend your webinar. These are people who registered for your webinar, said they would be there, and 75 or 80% of them don't show up. And the gurus are like, well, that's expected. And what are you talking? The expectations are so wrong. Like, why would that be okay? If you had a party and invited people who said, I will be at your party, and only 20% showed up, would you be happy? Yeah. No, you'd never have another party in your life. You'd be devastated.
Yeah.
So that's the true with the show up rates, with the sell rates, all the numbers that they give. The expectations are so low, and what I would tell people is challenge that. That's not normal, and you can do much better than that. It's just the guru's own bad tactics that are failing over time have reduced them to the point of saying, well, this is all you can expect, that's a good number. Challenge that. You can do so much better by using good psychology, good tactics, good strategies, thinking long term, the advice that you gave as well. You can do much better.
Yeah. I so agree. And the one thing I have noticed with myself, my own experience with other business owners, sometimes we inadvertently build a business that we don't really want. And it's because, just like I did, took these courses, learned I can do this, the different tactics or methods or whatever it is, formulas. And it was really a challenge for me to stop and say, okay, my business might be successful, but I'm not really happy with it. And that's when I had to take a step back, look at what I was doing. I have actually torn businesses right down to the bare bones and built them again, because for me, being aligned with my values and my beliefs was more important than being financially successful. To me, the financial success is secondary to being fulfilled in the business I've built. That means that I want to put my customers, my potential customers first, and respect where they're at and come to them from a place of service. How can I help you? This is your problem. These are the solutions I offer. Is this a good time? Are we a good fit to work together? And that is a vast departure from the, like you said, coming in and you've got 15 minutes. If you don't take this now, you're going to miss out. You may never see this again. Pressure, 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 push, push, push. Who is it really about? Those tactics are not about the customer and their experience. It's about making the sale. It's for the person selling.
Yeah.
And it was once I realized that that's not how I want my business to operate. I want my customer, my potential customers, my clients to be first and foremost, not secondary to the sale. So it was making that switch, and it was hard. Oh, it was so hard. Made me feel sick to my stomach when I discovered it. And I was like, oh, I got to change a whole bunch of stuff now that I'm doing. And yes, it was hard, and I did not enjoy doing it. And I've ripped down actually 2 businesses right to the bare bones to build them back up. So grateful I did. So grateful I did.
Well, and made me think that the gurus teach just the opposite. Like, you start with the tool and the method, and they'll even say, people say, well, can I use this method in my business? Yes, in any business. Do I even need a business? No, you don't even need a business. Do I need an idea? No, you don't even need an idea. You start with the formula and the method. It's so backwards. I think it was, I don't want to miscredit. I think it might've been John Schumacher. I can't remember who said, they said something to the effect of, all the technology, all this, online marketing stuff that we use just accelerates what you have. It just amplifies what you have. So if you don't have anything, you're amplifying nothing. You're amplifying garbage. You're amplifying what you don't want to be. And so your advice is so spot on. Start there. Like, how can you help people? Start with, forget all the methods and the tools and the platforms and all the stuff we're spending monthly fees on, that's just breaking our, banks spending money on this stuff. And just start where you did. You broke things back down. What do I want to sell? Who am I? How, who can I help? What can I help them with? And then once you get that to a level that you could explain it to somebody and sell this like face to face, door to door on the phone, then use the technology, to get the message, to make it more scalable and get it out to more people.
Yeah, I so agree. And that, again, this is the reason why we started this little video series that we have, is because Matt and I have been talking about this for a while. We know we're not the only ones who have had these challenges and struggles. we want to put this out there again to create some sort of movement where people have an alternative place to go. And I love it too. I mean, spending so many years in academia, I'm like right there with you, Matt. Push us too. Don't just take what we say as fact, gospel. Push us, ask questions. And it might be sometimes the most productive conversations are the ones that are uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that. And I believe Matt is too. I really would prefer people to ask and push their knowledge forward, move forward and grow versus just passively accepting. That's what this is all about. So please, comments. And then we can bring them up, right? And talk about them, right, Matt?
Yeah, that's right. If you're watching this on YouTube, put a comment below. Tell us about your own experience. We'll put some links there. If you're listening to this on a podcast, on our website, wherever you are, just comment, just get your word out there. We'll use these in an upcoming episode just to, kind of play off these ideas. But just know that you're not alone. And that's what we're trying to get at, because we've heard this from so many different people who are just in these isolated pockets. They're talking maybe within their masterminds, or they're just thinking about this on their own. Like, something's not right here. The formulas aren't working. Maybe it's me, maybe I'm doing something wrong, but it's just so frustrating to see people go through what we went through, right? Spend all the money and all the time just to come right on back and go, whoa, what did I just do? I just made a lot of people money, but I didn't help anybody. And that's the frustration. I only helped the people that were selling me these products and platforms and tools and apps and all that sort of stuff. And I helped nobody that needed my help. And now I've turned that around in this past year, and I'm actually helping people with things based on my experience and my knowledge. And that's where everybody is that's listening. You have something unique to share with the world. You have experience and knowledge. You have a solution, a tool, maybe some sort of service that could help the rest of us. And you need to get our attention. You need to get us, so we can hear what you have to say to see if this really will help us. And using these online marketing tactics that are failing just smothers it and just puts that wet blanket right on top, and nobody will hear it. You'll get a couple of sales, and then you'll push on, I got a couple of sales. And then you'll get a few likes, and you'll get a couple more people on your list. You're like, see, I'm making progress. You're making progress despite those tactics. Those tactics aren't what's helping it. That's the obstacle in your way.
Yeah.
So love to hear your pushback. If you're a guru listening to this, I'd love for you to slam me right now in these comments. Tell me how wrong you are. But I don't see it. As a researcher, as a scientist, as a psychologist, as somebody who has used your methods and tools and platforms, I'd like to hear what you have to, have to say about that.
All are welcome here, but no haters, okay? That's one thing we want to be clear about. No haters. This is a place for discussion and perhaps to show different opinions, different views. That's certainly what we want, but no haters. And if any gurus do pop on, hey, that would be fantastic. Because again, this is what it's all about, right, Matt?
That's right. So share the word. If watching this video, somebody who's struggling, somebody who keeps trying the tactics and they're not able to leave their other, their day job. They're not able to make progress. I think they could if they'd try some new tactics, some alternatives. And we'll be talking a lot more specific about these alternatives in upcoming videos. So stay tuned. Yeah.
All right, I guess that's it. Thanks very much for joining us. And again, comments, subscribe, wherever you are finding this information on the web. We will be putting these out weekly and looking forward to hearing from you.
Terrific. See you next time, Anita.
Okay, see ya. Bye.